Tensions continue to rise between Iran and Israel. According to a Reuters report, two rockets launched from Lebanon on Wednesday struck Israel, which responded with artillery fire amid heightened regional tensions over an alleged Iranian attack on an oil tanker in the Gulf last week. Israel's Magen David Adom National Ambulance Service said there was no casualties on the Israeli side of the hilly frontier where the rockets ignited a brush fire. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the rocket attack launched from an area south of Lebanon under the sway of Iranian-backed Hezbollah guerrillas. In a statement, Israel's military said 3 rockets were fired from Lebanon, with one falling short of the Israeli border and the other striking inside Israel. Witnesses in Lebanon also reported that several rockets were fired at Israel. In response, Israeli artillery forces attacked Lebanese territory, the military said. Some 2 hours after the initial shelling, the military said its artillery had fired again at targets which it did not identify along the border. The Lebanese army said Israeli retaliatory attacks, which extended to several villages in South Lebanon, had led to a fire in the town of Rayash al-Faq. It was investigating to find out who had fired the attacks from Lebanon. The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon said its head of mission and force commander, Major General Stefano Del Col, was in contact with both parties. He urged them to cease fire and to exercise maximum restraint to avoid further escalation, especially on the solemn anniversary. The border has been mostly quiet since Israel fought a 2006 war against Hezbollah, which has advanced rockets. This coming out of an earlier report during the week where Prime Minister Naftali Bennett told before a conference at the Knesset on Monday that previous leadership, mainly Netanyahu government, had failed policy on Iran, led to the continued buildup of missiles. Naftali told the conference, quote, "Iran is racing ahead with its nuclear program. We will deal with it. We know what to do, but to fight with every country in the world while Iran proceeds with its military program is irresponsible. But this is the legacy you have left for us," end quote. The premier also slammed the previous government's actions in dealing with the Gaza Strip and for allowing the Iranian-backed Lebanese Hezbollah terror group to amass an arsenal of rockets able to reach any part of the country. Netanyahu, in response, said that Bennett and Foreign Minister Yair Lapid compromised Israel's abilities to act against Iran by promising the United States that it would not take military action without informing Washington. "I never agreed to such a thing," Netanyahu said. "You made Israel a protectorate of the United States," he told Bennett. Earlier on Monday, Defense Minister Benny Gantz told the Knesset that Israel will act quickly against Iran after the attack on an Israeli-operated oil tanker off the coast of Oman last week, which left 2 crew members dead. Gantz told, quote, "Iran's aggression in the region generally, and on the maritime front in particular, is intensifying. This is the exact reason that we must act now against Iran, which not only strives for a nuclear military program, but is also leading to a dangerous arms race and threatening the stability in the Middle East," end quote. Israel has been proclaiming that Iran's been building nuclear devices for the last 15 years. Meanwhile, Iran has been passing all the rules and regulations afforded to him by the International Atomic Association. This on the heels of an article that Naftali Bennett denies, which the New Yorker wrote in July 15th of 2021, where the former general of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, who spoke with President Donald Trump on January 3rd, 2021, where the subject of the Sunday afternoon meeting at the White House was Iran's nuclear program. For the past several months, Milley had been engaged in an alarming effort to ensure that Trump did not embark on a military conflict with Iran, as was part of his quixotic campaign to overturn the results of the 2020 election and remain in power. According to the New Yorker, there were 2 nightmare scenarios, Milley told associates, for the period after the November 3rd elections, which resulted in Trump's defeat, but not only his concession. One was that Trump would try to use the military on the streets of America to prevent a legitimate peaceful transition of power. The other was an external crisis involving Iran. It was not public at the time, but Miley believed that the nation had come close, very close, to the conflict with the Islamic Republic. This dangerous post-election period, Miley said, was all because of Trump's Hitler-like embrace of the big lie, that the election had been stolen from him. Miley feared that it was Trump's Reichstag moment, in which, like Adolf Hitler in 1933, would manufacture a crisis in order to sweep in and rescue the nation from it. Whether that is true or not, what is true is the continuing aggression by Israel and the Iranian government under its mullahs, which have been antagonists at times. But it seems that Saudi Arabia, the United States, and Israel have been the antagonists for a war against Iran, which, of course, would drag the United States military into an impossible situation in which saw an unsuccessful attempt to try and defeat Afghanistan, and two tours in Iraq, which saw the deaths of 1 million Iraqis, thousands of American soldiers, as well as coalition forces as well. And all for the benefit of whom? People in suits who sit on their opulent chairs, backed by corporate lobbyists who profit off the deaths of our men and women and to the Arab civilians abroad.